Like a lot of other people out there, much of the last several weeks of my life have been sunk into one thing. A little game called Stardew Valley. A simple game developed by one man on a quest to create a Harvest Moon clone. You heard that right, a game made to be a Harvest Moon clone. And yet, overnight, it became a smash hit on the Steam platform and across the entire internet. Amazing, isn't it? How did something with such humble beginnings and developed by one man take the internet by storm? What is it that brought so many people so much joy? Well, there's no other way to find out than to take a dive into the sleepy little village of Stardew Valley. This is one area of the game that some people are gonna love and some will hate. Yes, some may even be turned away just by this alone. In the same way that other parts of the game are a throwback to simpler times and places that you've been before, the graphics are too. Where its bigger competitors go for the bright, stylized graphics, Stardew feels like slipping on a comfortable pair of pajamas and firing up that old SNES that you keep in the closet just to remember your childhood days. There's no doubt about it, the game purposefully looks like the classic 16-bit versions of Harvest Moon. It's not flashy, doesn't have fancy effects or graphics that require the latest drivers, but in all honesty, it needs none of that. No, it just has to remind you how much that you missed those classic sim titles. And although it's not as cute, colorful, and stylized as the later titles, there's enough character in the world to perk anyone's interest who enjoyed picking up a shovel and hoe in the Harvest Moon universe. The world is lively, interesting, and has a surprising amount of depth to it. Sure, some people may be turned off by the classic pixel art style, but for those of us that grew up playing the classics of this genre, Stardew feels just like coming home. And the best part about it is, if you don't like the style, unlike the big guys, you're more than free to mod in something that you like even more. And you'd be surprised what modders have come up with over the last 2 months alone. So while the graphics may not be for everyone, they do the job just fine, bringing those of us back to worlds that we remembered so fondly. And with that in mind, I give the graphics a solid C+. At first glance, the story seems as simple and bare-boned as it comes. On his deathbed, your loving grandfather leaves you an inheritance with the instruction to open the envelope when the weight of the world and all of its stressors become too much to handle. A few years later, your character, who is living that typical corporate life, has realized that he or she can take no more and reach the point of no return. After which, you pull out that same envelope to find that your grandfather left you a note with the deed to his farm in Stardew Valley, a place for you to start a new life by going back to a simpler, slowed down life that the modern world has simply left behind. And that is where things can both begin and end. From the moment you start your adventure, the story can really be that simple. The rest of the storylines, events, and character relationships are totally optional. But for those that are willing to delve a little deeper, dig, there is a lot more there. And how deep that you go is all up to you. When you talk to the people, what you find are deep and interesting storylines that touch subject matters that may surprise you coming from such a cute and relaxed looking exterior. Alcoholism, abandonment, corporate takeover, secret relationships, and wartime fears are just a few of the subjects that you can uncover as you speak to the villagers, getting to know them a little bit better. It's such a refreshing change from the typical light fluff that you usually see in stories of this genre, and it really makes you want to dig in and get to know these characters, understand their lives, and find out just what happened to cause this little village to be on the brink of collapse, just waiting for that stiff wind to either knock it down or somebody to help brace it back up before the wind comes. And that makes it work even better. No longer are you forced into cutscenes, voiceovers, and events unless you choose to. And when you do, it makes it feel that much more rewarding, even if some of them can really depress you. With all of that in mind, I give the story a well-deserved A. Please pass me a tissue, could you? Although it's wrapped in a world of simple old-school graphics, it's still not complete without the sounds and music to make the world really come to life. A lack of quality recording can really hurt a classic-inspired game. But no, the creator of this title took the time to bring in sounds and tunes reminiscent of classic Harvest titles, and I'm happy to say they don't disappoint. Sure, if you go in the game expecting big explosions, realistic depth-filled sounds, you will be disappointed. But obviously this just isn't that type of game. No, instead of big, loud sounds, what you can expect here are small, quirky sounds that add charm and atmosphere, the kind that pull you into this cute world rather than those that grab your ears and yell at you with intensity. And that really works here. Sure, some of them can sound a little generic, but they're exactly what you would expect from a 90s simulation title, which is exactly what Stardew was aiming to do. And so long as you know what to expect, there won't be anything to be really disappointed about. The music, on the other hand, is a much different story. To be honest, I find much of the music quite beautiful, as it fits the theme quite well, bringing you straight into this relaxed, slower-paced world. Cheerful tunes remind you which seasons you're in, what events are coming up, the changes of weather, and even music that warns you of the dangers as you enter the cave dungeons. That's not to say it's all perfect and going to grab every person that hears it, but the music is well put together, themed, and it makes it a strong point of this title. I just wish there was a little bit more, as some of it can get a little repetitive after you've heard the same tunes over and over again. All in all, the sounds and music are a solid entry in this little simulator. Sure, they're nothing to get overly excited about, but they get the job done. And unlike some other titles I've played in the past, they do nothing to hurt your experience. With all of that in mind, I give the sounds and music a nice B. Let's turn on the radio station, shall we? Considering everything that we've covered, I know what a lot of people are going to be asking. How does this game play? Is it like the typical farm simulator with the repetitive dig, 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 plant, plant, water, rinse, and repeat? Yes and no. Of course, being based upon Harvest Moon, the meat of the gameplay breaks down into simple functions of farm care. You will spend a considerable amount of your time breaking in the land and taking care of your crops and animals. There is just no getting around that. It's what the game was meant to do. But thankfully, there is more to it than just that. Unlike the titles that this is based upon, there is fighting involved. Fighting, you ask? In a farm simulator? Yes, fighting. The life of a farmer is a little more dangerous than you would expect, especially if you dare enter the caves. Sure, it's simplistic and nothing fancy, but it doesn't need to be. Armed with pieces of wood, swords, and even ranged weapons, you search for the minerals, gems, and other supplies that you need to upgrade your tools, build structures on your farm, or just to make other villagers happy in search of a best friend or even true love. Yes, you heard me right, true love. Veterans of the genre will not be surprised, as it's a staple of simulators. Befriending and romancing NPCs has been one of the biggest elements of these titles for a very long time. The difference here is that there are some actual benefits to the gaming experience by getting to know these little people around you a little bit better. Befriending them will give you rewards to unlock new items, storylines, challenges, and even locations in your tiny village. Many of them are quite fun and interesting, and they add new aspects to the title. I won't go into any specifics, but let's just say there are a lot more secrets and things under the surface for you to discover as you play. And what was that I said about true love? Well, Johnny, if you're looking for that significant other to help you on your farm, take care of your wounds between cave fights, this is the right place for you. Among the villagers are 5 bachelors and 5 bachelorettes awaiting your attention and gifts. That's right, 10 choices of potential spouses are just waiting for you, hollering for you to pick them. Well, not exactly. In fact, many of them don't think too fondly of your advances in the early stages of the game. So it will be a long, tough road if you really want to find that perfect match and love on your farm. And more choices will be coming in a future patch. So, if you're looking for a game to relax to after a long day of work, gives you a chance to sit down with some virtual buddies and talk about the good times on the farm, do a little fishing, and maybe fight a few monsters, fall in love, this is the game for you. And with that in mind, I give the gameplay a very relaxing A. Let's go plant some trees, shall we? How is it that a little game with such humble beginnings and aspirations is becoming so popular? By scratching an itch and crafting a little bit of magic that's been missing from the Harvest Moon franchise for some time. And what is it? The simplicity of focusing on what people loved about it the most. A simple story and relaxed atmosphere. Sure, the simple graphics may turn some people away, but it isn't about blowing people away with flashy effects, beautiful high-res graphics. No, it's about reminding people that those same fancy graphics, fancy effects, and big, huge stories don't make a beautiful game. No one with much simpler parts can be just as beautiful when done right. Much like its story, the game reminds us that it's okay to play a game, just to slow down and enjoy some of the more simple things. Watching birds, fishing, worrying what crops to grow, just to make your farm a shining success in this little town that itself is struggling to survive corporate takeover. So, if you enjoy a game that not only lets you, but forces you to slow down and enjoy the scenery, then this might be right up your alley. If you're looking for something that's loud, flashy, explosive, and far more exciting, honestly, this won't do a thing for you. No, it's just not that type of game. As for me, I love the atmosphere, the familiar gameplay that brings me back to the 16-bit era Sims, and the way that something so simple can feel so fresh and interesting just by taking some old ideas and putting a few simple twists on them, all without having to reinvent the wheel or blow up the barn. All in all, any fan of simulators should definitely give Stardew Valley a closer look. And in my book, it earns a well-deserved E.